My name is Lisa, and I'm an internal support coordinator with WEX FSM. I wanted to welcome you all to today's session of Solution Studio. Today, we're going over resolving sync errors, and I wanted to put out a disclaimer here first. Before you make any changes to your QuickBooks, make sure you check with your accountant because we're not accountants here. So please always make sure to reach out to your accountant if you have any questions. Also, some functions like merging cannot be reversed, so you'll need to make sure all company information from the child customer has been copied to the new parent customer, or that all or the information will be lost in the QuickBooks merge. So I will show you how to do that when we are on that area. So let's go over a couple of different things. We have two options here, and one is syncing with QuickBooks Desktop, and the other is syncing with QuickBooks Online. So QuickBooks Desktop requires a sync tool that will be manually loaded on the computer that hosts the QuickBooks company file. An office person with admin level QuickBooks permission is required to monitor the sync tool daily or however often you want to sync, and or set it up to auto sync. And if they decide as a business that that's how you would like to do this process, some people like to set it on like an every 15 minutes. Some people like to review this before they go over and manually push the sync. Excuse me, it's all up to you as a business to decide how you want to do that. QuickBooks Desktop has a sync log that the customer support team can take a look to see what might be causing the error if it's not readily available from the invoice or the customer or the payments tab. Sometimes there's not an error in there in the error system that actually states what the problem is, and the system will just kick it up and you have to go look at the sync logs to see what's going on. So QuickBooks Online does not require a sync tool. It's a direct connection that requires the QuickBooks admin to connect into it by adding their user and password in the settings of WEX FSM. There's no monitoring of a sync tool. The sync automatically happens every 10 minutes if there are items to sync, and there is no way to manage the sync schedule like QuickBooks Desktop. There's a limit to how many objects can sync at one time, so all of your data, if you have a lot going on, may not go through all in the first go around. About 25 to 30 objects can go in each sync. An invoice is an object, and each line item on that invoice is an object. Okay, so if you have a lot going on, you may see some of it go through, and some of it will wait until the next sync. So it may take your items several syncs to migrate into your QuickBooks file. Be patient. If something's stuck in syncing in the sync status, do not reset it back to ready yet. There may be messaging in the system that is between WEX FSM and QuickBooks Online, and if it gets backed up where everybody's trying to sync all at the same time, it could stay in that syncing status for a little bit. So give it a little time to work its way through the system, so don't set them back to ready, as this could create a duplicate item. All of the information for every QuickBooks account goes through the same funnel, so sometimes if there's a lot of traffic, you may see a little slowness, especially when you're got the East Coast and then the West Coast comes on in the afternoon. Sometimes there's a little bit of a gap in there, and it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does. So please be patient about that. So let's see. It will continue to work on all of the items every 10 minutes until it works through all of it. But it will not sync if there are no items. So sometimes you'll look at hover over an invoice or a payment, and you'll see that the last sync was maybe 2 hours ago. If you don't have anything to sync, it is not going to sync. So just remember that when you look at that and you say, okay, it may not be working, it's just because there's nothing new. The sync takes new information through each time. So if it's a new customer, if it's new activity on that customer, an invoice, a payment, QuickBooks item changes, things like that. Once those pop up as new and novel items, it will start to sync again. Okay. QuickBooks Online sync logs can only be seen by a developer, and any review or the updates of the customer IDs must be done by a support request. They call them the gray logs. So even support can't see those. It would have to go to a developer. So if there's anything on QuickBooks that can't be readily fixed by working through the sync errors, sometimes there may have to be a support request where we can go through and find out what's going on. So let me pull up my QuickBooks. and make this go down. Oops, sorry. So here's my QuickBooks, and I'm using QuickBooks Desktop, and it's a test account. And regularly, um, Intuit will decide that since it is a test account, they can close it. And so we have to do through this whole thing to get it updated. So sometimes things don't quite match because my QuickBooks items may be from the third rendition before of this. So just bear with me on that so that we can know that some things aren't going to match correctly. Okay. So this is my QuickBooks, and let's go to on the invoice list here. Okay. There's also a button here that says sync support that nobody really pays too much attention to. And if you click on it, you're going to see a sync guide. You're going to see sync errors and solutions, overview of QuickBooks Desktop Sync, invoice field mapping. So if you're looking to see where something from one of your invoices is mapping to in QuickBooks, you can see that in there, and your invoice list. Now, the sync errors and solutions is a great thing because you can go in here and look for the error, whether it's a customer error, an invoice error, or a payment error. It's going to have payment errors, and then it'll be back office errors. Okay, so you can go by the number, and you can see in here some of the next steps that you can take to resolve those sync errors and see if it's maybe an item that's been deactivated in QuickBooks or an income account, that type of thing. And you can kind of take a peek and see what's going on there. Okay, so let's go back to what syncs. So in our system, the things that sync, and I'll go to here, customers, customer sync. I'm going to right click and have probably 12 tabs open by the time I get done. Invoices sync, payment sync. Okay, and as you can see, I don't have any payments in this test account, so let's go back a little ways to there. Okay, and accounting and tax settings sync. Okay, the other thing that syncs, and let me go to, is your QuickBooks item list. So if you update your QuickBooks item list in QuickBooks, it will sync back up to WEX FSM. And if you go into the accounting taxes and create a new one, it will sync down. The only items that go two ways are these accounting and tax settings. And let me see if I can find one that has something. Let's go into this one. If I create an invoice and I hit add item, there is a table in here if you use QuickBooks Online or Desktop that brings in all of the items for your QuickBooks item list. So if you update this in QuickBooks or in in QuickBooks, not in WEX FSM, this will sync back up to WEX FSM so that you can have your most recent QuickBooks item list updated. There's nowhere else in the system to update the QuickBooks item list in WEX FSM. The updates for that have to come from QuickBooks, but these go both ways. Okay. So we've got these different items that all sync. Okay. So well, let's say when you first came and you had your data loaded, you may see a lot of these in error. And what they would mean if they were all like yellow is when they loaded them to keep all of this traffic from going into QuickBooks for things that are already in QuickBooks, they would stay in that error or not ready until you have an update. So let's say I came in to this customer and I updated the information here or created an appointment, a payment, an invoice in here and updated the system. Okay. this would go back to ready on the customer and it would sync over one or two at a time as you use them. So all of that old customer history will be sitting there, ready to go whenever you make a new update. So don't be concerned if you come in here and you're a first timer and you see lots of these that are yellow. It doesn't mean that they didn't sync. It means that they were already in QuickBooks and they're waiting there to be reactivated, for the sync every time that new information comes in on them. Okay. So let's say that you have a duplicate in our system. So in our system, I've got two Jack Dawsons. I have a Jack Dawson and a Jack D. Dawson. Okay. So how would I know which one of these I want to keep, or if it's the same? It's got the same location, it's got the same email, it's got the same phone number. So odds are pretty good that this is going to be a duplicate. There are these little red carrots here, and you can take a look to see there's 2 active locations, 7 invoices, payment volume, maintenance plans, equipment, and a last appointment date. Okay, we've had some activity on this one. There's nothing on this one other than a location, which is actually the same location. So I could see that this is a duplicate. So once again, if you're not sure what you're doing, I would always make a backup of your QuickBooks file, okay, and not merge anything until you're sure, because it can't be undone. So you have to be pretty well sure that you're doing this, that it is a duplicate. So in our system, in WEX FSM, if you click on both of these and you hit merge, nothing's going to happen right away. You've got some time, so don't worry. You hit merge and you can say, okay, this is the one that I want to keep. And you choose the master. You hit Jack Dawson, and that becomes the master, and this becomes the child. It also gives you a warning that there are 2 in QuickBooks. Okay, so if there was just one Jack Dawson right here, you need to make sure it's the same one that's in QuickBooks. Okay, you should look in QuickBooks. It says 2 active locations. I got 7 invoices. I'm good to go. You can just merge this in here, and there wouldn't be this other option. Okay, so it's going to ask you to confirm that you have merged this in QuickBooks as well, because let's say I merged this one into Jack Dawson and I didn't merge it in QuickBooks. There, you're still going to have 2 in QuickBooks, and the next time you have activity, it's going to go back over to that other one again. You always want to make sure that you're merging into the correct one. So if the names are exactly the same, I have gone in and done this before, which really helps. Anything red in the system, you can click on it. Choose the one that has the most activity and put a 1 next to it, okay? And then save. When this syncs to QuickBooks, you're going to see a Jack Dawson 1, and it will update the one that you want to keep in QuickBooks. You can merge the other one into the one that has Jack Dawson 1, and then come back in here after you've done the merge in both places, take out the 1, and it will update the customer in QuickBooks to be just Jack Dawson again. So it kind of helps you identify, because if you're in the system and you're looking at, okay, Jack Dawson, and then you go in QuickBooks and look at you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So I like to do this if the names are exactly the same. But since this is Jack Dawson and Jack D. Dawson, I know when I get to QuickBooks, that I will be merging Jack D. Dawson into Jack Dawson. Okay, I'm going to back out of this for right now, and you can back out of it just by unclicking and hitting cancel, and then just unclick these guys. Okay, so in QuickBooks, let me make this a little bit bigger. Go to customers and go to my customer center. There we go. I have Jack Dawson and Jack D. Dawson. Okay, so now one of the things that I was telling you earlier is when you go into the customer, let's say Jack Dawson updated his email, and whoever updated it and created this duplicate customer put it on this one. So this email or this phone number is different than this one. Right now they're the same. But let's just say for chuckles and grins that this was created as a duplicate on accident, and he said, you're confirming the customer's name and email address. And they said, oh, no, I've updated my email address. and it's different here. Check to see which one is the correct one, and then copy this one and update this customer, because if you merge this customer into this customer, that email address will be lost. So always when you're going to merge in QuickBooks, make sure that you have the most recent customer information here so that you don't lose it. So if I'm going to merge in QuickBooks, I could come in and go into here and copy Jack Dawson's name. Well, let me copy it from there. It's not letting me. Hang on just a second. I told you there would be technical difficulties. Give me just a moment. So you would come to this one and copy, cancel. And then you would go to paste this in here and hit OK. And it's going to ask you that this is already in use and if you would like to merge it. If you're going to go ahead and merge it, you would hit yes. I'm going to keep this for a duplicate customer so that I can go on and show it again next time, but just wanted to let you know how to do that in the system. Okay, so I still got my Jack Dawson and I've got my Jack D. Dawson. And thank you for your patience while I was getting that fixed over on the other side. Okay, so now we've merged customers. And when you see, let's go to the customer list and see if we have any errors. Okay, we don't have any errors in this one. So a customer error of 101 for QuickBooks Online says the customer cannot be found by the sync. So there may have been a mapping error. So maybe you have created this customer in between the initial data load and the second data load, and it can't map that. So what you would do is you would come in and on a customer, let me get out of here. Let's go to Bear Gray. In our system, up in the URL, it says Payserware customer show. This is our identifying number for this customer in our system, the 151-62613. So you could reach out to customer support and give them a screenshot of this customer, including this URL up here. Okay. And in QuickBooks Online, pull up that customer and show the URL, and it's going to have a different number. And you could say, reach out to customer support and say, hey, I have a customer that's not syncing. It's in WEX FSM and is in QuickBooks Online, but it can't find each other. And I'm getting a customer error. If you give them this number and the other number, they can do a support request and get the mapping reset for you so that it will sync over successfully. Okay. So invoices. So invoices have different items that allow it to sync. to QuickBooks Online. So if you have an invoice that does not have any line items, it's not going to sync because there's nothing to go over. So you can always add an item to your price book if you can't charge someone that says no charge with an income account and add it to any invoices that you create, that you just need to document that there was work done there, but you couldn't charge the customer. Okay. And so it would need to have an income account. And all of these, let's see if I have one in here that has a zero amount. There's voided. These are the large ones. Toggle up and down till I can get to one that says zero. Okay, so these have zero. And the payment status is no payment required. But see how it's synced? Because we added a part to it with an income account. Okay. Whenever you see an error, if you hover over the error, it will tell you what is going on and what you need to look at. If it says not ready, it's probably because, let's see if we got any not readies in here. Yeah, we've got some not readies in here because it's linked to a deactivated tax group. Remember I told you QuickBooks keeps shutting me off, and so I had to go back and restart everything. So I started with new tax groups, and so it doesn't match what's in my price book anymore. So you would come in and see how it says deleted and look for, I think I have 2026 job income, and change these all to 2026 job income. And then this will go back to ready. Just save it. It won't go through in the next one, but it will go back to ready. Okay. And once it goes through the next sync, you'll see whether it has an error or not. My favorite ones, remember I told you that sometimes the system doesn't have a an actual warning or it can't really tell what's going on. And it'll say object of an object. Usually if you have an object of an object one, it's an odd error. You're going to have to reach out to customer support for that one because it just doesn't know what to call it. So when you see that, sometimes you can't make sense of it. That's what's going on. Let's see. So you would come in and you would go error. This one says, please take the following steps to attempt before syncing again. Go to Office settings and ensure that all income and liabilities accounts are synced. If any accounts are displaying error, make sure that they sync successfully before setting this one back to ready again. If you can't fix it, then you need to reach out to customer support and it'll be an error 209 and you can go through that with them. But it should give you the steps pretty well on how to go fix these. Okay. So the other one are payments. And same thing with the payments. You can come in here and say payment successfully synced to the customer what was not applied to one of the associated invoices. Please ensure that all the associated invoices are successfully synced to ensure that the payment syncs correctly. If they are synced, please review the transaction sync log or reach out to customer support. So this one has saying that it is synced to the customer, but not to the invoice. So when you first start, some of the invoices that are brought in were not created in our system. So they kind of act as a placeholder, but they don't really function like invoices that are created in our system. So it would be behind anything that, whatever the date that the sync was set for, it will be set to off. So that invoice that was created in the other system will be set to off. And what happens is when you take the payment in WEX FSM to satisfy this invoice that's behind a sync conversion date, it will error out and it will say, I can't follow the path that the invoice was created because it wasn't created in our system, but I got it to the customer. So you can go over and in QuickBooks, reassign that payment that is unapplied on that customer to the correct invoice. And this may happen a few times when you first start because some invoices were created in your old system and then you moved over into our new system and then took the payment in the new system. And these should be few and far between. You may have a few of these right at the beginning for any unpaid invoice that was brought in, but after a bit, they go away. So you shouldn't have that problem. The only other time that you should have that problem is if you're taking a down payment And a down payment would not be applied to an invoice. It wouldn't have a check mark here. And that's one of the nice little things you can check. You can check to see the invoice that it was assigned to. Okay. If it was assigned to a maintenance plan, it's going to have that second check mark. And if it's not assigned to anything, you can do a quick double check by editing payment, hit reassign payment, go see if it was supposed to be assigned to one of these or if it is actually a down payment and it needs to stay without a check mark until that invoice is created and then apply it to it. So one of the ways that you can come in the system is click on invoice and toggle it up and down, and you'll see any invoices within this date range, any payments within this date range that are not assigned to an invoice. Okay, do that quick double check to see if you need to assign it or if it's a down payment or what's going on with this, and then go ahead and it will sync. Any of these will sync to the customer, but since there's no invoice, it will be sitting as an unapplied balance on that customer. And in our system, it's going to be sitting there as an unapplied payment as well. And it will show up as a gold bar. Okay, click on the gold bar and do the same thing. It will also show a gold bar here if you only partially applied. I can't speak this afternoon. Partially applied the payment to an invoice and there's still an unapplied amount. And all you do is click the pencil, reassign payment, go look for the correct one, and go from there. Okay, let's see. So the other thing that can happen, so we've done customers, invoices, and payments. So let's say I close my January books and I lock them in QuickBooks. Okay. And if you take a payment for something that's an invoice that's locked, you're going to get a 207 error. Nope. Wait a minute. I think it's a 209 error. It's a 209 error that's going to say when you hover over it that the books are locked. Okay. It'll get it to the customer, but it can't apply to that because the books are locked for your reporting. So you may see that as well. And you can see the sync errors and solutions up under here. Okay. So best practices. Okay. So I use air quotations a lot. Somebody in the office needs to monitor these to make sure that everything's getting through so that when you do your AR and you're in the system and going back and sending out the invoices that are unpaid to customers, if you've already gone through these and made sure that every payment is associated with an invoice, you're going to make sure that when you run that report and send those out in bulk, that you're not sending somebody an invoice that's already been paid because they tend to get a little bit cranky if you send them an invoice that hasn't been paid. So if you come in and if you haven't done this ever since you've been in here, go back to maybe the first of the year or when you started and start reassigning those to make sure that they're all there so that moving forward, you can just review these daily or weekly to make sure that everything's getting connected correctly. Okay. Um, let's see. So we've gone over merging, we've gone over sync errors, we've gone over how to check to see if everything is syncing and where to find those. Did you have any questions, any specific questions on things that you're dealing with at this time that I can help with? There's just us in here, so you can just unmute yourself if you'd like to. Okay. So let's see what we've got going for tomorrow. Tomorrow is managing your payments in WEX FSM, and we'll go through that and do a special separate session on that, kind of dig in deeper to payments and how to manage them, how to do credits and refunds, that type of thing. Um, and then Fridays we have Q&A. If you decide that you want to bring some of the questions there directly, there's a place to sign up and there's a place to put in a question where we can know what you would like to go over ahead of time to make sure we have the right people on hand to answer your questions. If you don't have any other questions, I think I'm going to let you get back to work. And don't hesitate to reach out to customer support if there's anything we can do, or come to our Friday Q&A. And have a great rest of your day. Oh, wait a minute. I have a lot of, there it is. Excuse me. I have a lot of unapplied payments. Would there be any other items? A lot of unapplied payments besides sync errors. Okay, so are you saying that you have a lot of them that don't have the check mark? Or are you saying that they're not syncing over to QuickBooks? No worries. In QuickBooks. So you have a lot of unapplied payments in QuickBooks. So either a down payment, um, they are in there but not applied. Okay, so when you went to your payment list, did you go back and see if there is an error on there? Does it show synced, or does it just showing that it's synced to the customer? Oh, not yet, just learned that. Okay, so you can kind of go back and review these and start taking a look at why they're showing as not applied. Think of it this way. The customer has to sync first, okay? So what happens anytime there's activity, the customer will go to ready, then the invoice syncs to the customer, and the payment follows that path to the invoice. Okay. So if one of these is out of whack, then that means they're not going to be like married. So if you went to the invoice, if you had one here that says this, okay, that it can't do it, you can go back to the invoice list and do a little detective work and find that invoice. Did I have what number? That one, 1793. Okay, see how it's set to off? It didn't sync because I either turned it off or it was before my conversion date. So if you see it set to off, you can go ahead, and if it wasn't supposed to be set to off, you can set it back to ready to sync. Maybe the invoice didn't get there, or it could be sitting here not ready, doesn't have an income account with an error. So if this payment made it over to QuickBooks, check the invoice to see, okay, did the invoice not get there? Okay. And then fix the error on the invoice and then set the payment back to ready. Invoices that look duplicated and have stars next to them? Hmm. So the invoice number has a star next to it in QuickBooks? Okay, so that means it's a duplicate. Do you have QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop? Online. Okay, so that could have been one of those issues where it was stuck in syncing and maybe somebody set it back to ready and it created a duplicate. So remember when I said if it's sitting there and syncing to allow it sometimes it's up to 24 hours. If Intuit does an update, it backs everything up. And so it may have done that. And if somebody went in and set it back to ready, it may have synced a duplicate. So you're right. In QuickBooks, it's going to show as a star. So you may want to go in and see, okay, I have the 179-3 in there once. That's correct. And I have 179-3 star. That's not correct. You may have to delete that one in QuickBooks and then reassign the payment to the correct one because it may be bouncing off that duplicate and not, since they have the same number, the sync may not be able to choose which one to assign it to. So you may have to do a little detective work. If it gets a little bit and you're lost, just just reach out to customer support and say, hey, I have duplicates in QuickBooks. Is there any way that you can kind of walk me through how to make sure that I'm getting it assigned to the correct one? Yeah, once you get it cleaned up though, you'll be able to see these in real time daily, and then it won't be as big a thing because usually, and I always say that the air quotation, somebody has to go back and clean this up, and then that way you'll know your books are clean. And that's one of the biggest things that let me sleep at night, knowing that my books were clean. Is there anything else I can do for you? Okay, you've done the invoice errors, but nothing else. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, you're going to do a little bit of detective work in there, but I think once you get it all done, you're going to feel better about it and you're going to feel more comfortable moving forward and being able to pinpoint those things that are off. And the other thing that's nice is come into reporting and go to the receivables. I have a whole another webinar about receivables, but if you come in to go to the receivables and I don't have any in here and run your receivables report, you'll be able to see part of the ones that are open draft, okay, ones that are a balance, and then the other one is the accounts receivable aging. Okay, and so this would be a quicker view on this to see between the two. You may want to either print both of them out and or have one up on one screen and have up the other, and just kind of look to see where the duplicates are, and that will help you identify them quicker rather than going through the whole thing. It could speed up your process for you. Okay. Okay. And if you decide, I'm trying to think of when, oh, we won't be having to manage accounts receivable one for a little while, but down here in the Help Center, if you go to search for help and you go to solution, if I can spell this afternoon, I was on a webinar for 2 hours before this one, so I was like barely able to form a sentence at this point, but it says advanced working sessions. And then you come down to the bottom. If you go into the financials and sync integrity, there should be my previous webinar on managing your accounts receivable. So that will help as well. And it'll show you how to go between the two. Okay. Because that one won't be coming up in the rotation for another couple of weeks again. Okay. And if you get stuck, don't hesitate to reach out to customer support because that's what they're there for. Okay. You're welcome. Anything else for you today? Okay. Have a great rest of your day.